The December 15, 1992 Watchtower defines a lie as a false statement or action, especially one made with intent to deceive, or anything that gives or is meant to give a false impression. That's a fairly standard definition. But the Watchtower magazine goes on to append this definition with a caveat. I have the last sentence in the paragraph redacted for now because some apologists might claim that since this article was from 1992, it's old light. So let's first hear it straight from governing body member Lösch's mouth on JW Broadcasting. Gerrit Lösch is the longest-serving governing body member still alive today, appointed in 1994.
We are surrounded by a sea of lies. A lie is a false statement deliberately presented as being true, a falsehood. A lie is the opposite of the truth. Lying involves saying something incorrect to a person who is entitled to know the truth about a matter.
Did you catch that? Let's rewind and listen to that again.
Lying involves saying something incorrect to a person who is entitled to know the truth about a matter.
Now we'll read that sentence from the 1992 article. By lies or half-truths, he strives to deceive those who are entitled to know the truth. The appended caveat, those who are entitled to know the truth, fundamentally redefines what a lie is. The Insight book under the subheading Lie corroborates the unique definition used by Lösch and the 1992 Watchtower. Lie, the opposite of truth. Lying generally involves saying something false to a person who is entitled to know the truth, and doing so with the intent to deceive or to injure him or another person. Again, that phrase, entitled to know the truth. The Insight book continues on the next page with this misapplication of Jesus' words. While malicious lying is definitely condemned in the Bible, this does not mean that a person is under obligation to divulge truthful information to people who are not entitled to it. Jesus Christ counseled, "Do not give what is holy to dogs, neither throw your pearls before swine, that they may never trample them under their feet and turn around and rip you open." That is why Jesus on certain occasions refrained from giving full information or direct answers to certain questions when doing so could have brought unnecessary harm. Jesus was not speaking about lying in Matthew 7 verse 6. And notice the disdain the organization has for everyone not a witness by comparing them to dogs and swine, not worthy of knowing the truth. Jesus kept silent, but he didn't lie. The section continues with their favorite weasel word, evidently. Evidently, the course of Abraham, Isaac, Rahab, and Elisha in misdirecting or in withholding full facts from non-worshippers of Jehovah must be viewed in the same light. What flimsy reasoning and justification! Can you think of anything else that is evidently fine about Rahab according to Jehovah's Witnesses, since the Bible didn't mention any repercussions for it? They also watered down the word lie to misdirecting. They didn't lie. They only misdirected those who are not entitled to know the truth. Just because the Bible didn't condemn those characters for lying in those particular accounts doesn't mean it was okay for them to lie, especially since the Bible repeatedly makes it clear what God's view on lying is. Proverbs 12 verse 22 says that lying lips are detestable to Jehovah. In Revelation 21, liars are equated to murderers and idolaters, deserving the second death. The 9th commandment given to Moses was, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." Moses didn't chisel an asterisk at the end of the commandment with a footnote stating, "To those who are entitled to know the truth." It was a straightforward command, but the Jehovah's Witnesses twist and misinterpret scriptures to align to their views and ever-changing beliefs. Jehovah's Witnesses convey two different messages on lying so they can have plausible deniability. The first message is this.
Caleb, do you know why Jehovah wants us to tell the truth? Telling the truth is like building a bridge with your friends. If you lie, they can't believe you. And they might not want to be your friend.
But Dad, what if it's not such a big lie?
All lies are bad, even little ones. One lie leads to another, and they cause much harm. Do you remember who told the first lie?
Satan?
Right. But what about Jesus? Would he ever lie? Who do you want to be like?
I want to be like Jesus.
Good, my son.
That's good advice. Don't lie, not even white lies. And in the Young People Ask, they wrote, yes, a false tongue was and is one of the things that Jehovah does hate. After all, it is Satan the devil himself who is the father of the lie. Interestingly, though, the Bible makes no distinction between lies and white lies. It simply says, no lie originates with the truth. That is why a devious person is a detestable thing to Jehovah, but his intimacy is with the upright ones. Yes, Jehovah simply will not have a close relationship with someone who is dishonest. The God-fearing youth thus cannot view any kind of lying as acceptable. That's the standard, good Christian view of lying that Jehovah's Witnesses want secular authorities to believe is their stance. What is the second message about lying? It has to do with their phrase, to those who are entitled to know the truth. But who is entitled to know the truth, and on what basis is that decided? And that's where the concept of theocratic warfare comes in. Theocratic warfare is not some made-up phrase by apostates, but if you haven't heard about it before, don't worry. This lawyer we will watch next was baptized in 1972, appointed an elder in 1977, was a circuit overseer from 1980 to 1989, when he then began working at Bethel headquarters. Bethel sponsored his legal studies, and since 2010 had oversight of the Australian legal department. He said he wasn't aware of the doctrine of theocratic warfare either. This is from the Australian Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse.
Are you aware of the doctrine of theocratic warfare?
No.
Never heard of it.
Well, I've heard the expression, but I'm not really sure what it means.
So you don't know what it means?
No.
Okay. Have you heard that in the Watchtowers in 1957 and 1960, that they say that as a soldier of Christ, you are in theocratic warfare and you must exercise added caution when dealing with God's foes. Thus, the scriptures show that for the purpose of protecting the interests of God's cause, it is proper to hide the truth from God's enemies. Have you heard of that?
No, and I've never read 1957 magazine articles, I'm sorry. I only became a Jehovah's Witness in 1972.
But you, as a lawyer, would be aware of such concepts, wouldn't you? That you can lie to protect Jehovah's name?
We are truthful. To be a Christian, you have to be truthful.
And it's simply that. But I'm just talking about deceiving, that falsehoods presented to God's enemies are not considered lies if it's to deceive outsiders to advance the organisation's interests.
I've never heard that.
Never heard that.
No, that's a completely foreign concept to my understanding.
He scoffed at the suggestion of reading an older magazine. Imagine a lawyer only reading law books that were written after the date he passed the bar exam. I thoroughly enjoyed this next exchange. Notice the surprised look from the Watchtower representative and the sudden coughing fit off-screen.
You say all elders serving in congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the world have been directed to contact the legal department in their local branch as soon as they learn of an allegation involving child sexual abuse. So am I to understand that there's a uniform process set out which applies throughout the world?
Subject to the fact, of course, that many branches mightn't have a legal department, but they would contact the branch there. But in Australia, we do have a legal department.
Yes. And that process, which is applicable throughout the world, that's determined by the governing body.
Well, there's a general direction throughout the world, as I understand.
Yes, and it's a general direction throughout the world determined by the governing body.
Well, as far as I understand, it's a direction that elders have been given.
Yes, but Mr. Toole, you seem to be trying to avoid what I understand to be quite well accepted, which is that it's the governing body that determines that direction.
That's what I understand, yes.
Yes. And that's typical, is it, of all Jehovah's Witnesses policies and procedures? That is, they're determined by the governing body and made applicable throughout the world.
Yes, the general policy would be determined by the governing body, but the application of it in the local setting would depend on the branch committee applying it to the relevant things in their local area.
Well, yes, whether a policy is actually followed in practice is a separate question, but dealing with the setting of what the practice is supposed to be, that's set by the governing body.
That's what I understand.
Yes. And is there a manual or a document published by the governing body which sets that out, what its responsibilities are, what the branch's responsibilities are, and so on?
I'm unaware of any such document.
So is there, not to your knowledge, a document which sets out the responsibilities of each of the governing body committees, for example?
I have no knowledge about that whatsoever.
And a document perhaps which sets out how members of branch committees are to be appointed?
I have no knowledge about that. I've never seen or heard of such things.
There are other copies coming shortly, but I'd just like to show you, there's a copy for you. I'd like to show you a document. You see, it's headed Branch Organisation, effective December 15, 1977, revised February 2003, and it's said to be, what says this material is Branch Organisation, this material in the Branch Organisation, being the name of the publication, should not be copied or duplicated except with the permission of the branch committee. It's published in the USA. Take it or understand it by the governing body. Have you seen this publication before?
No, I have not.
Do you know if this is the current edition?
I would have no idea.
Your Honour, I call for any revision or subsequent addition to the publication Branch Organisation.
Your Honour, until just then it wasn't called for, but I'll have a look.
Sorry?
I'll have an inquiry made about it if there are revisions.
Well, more than that, we'd like to know the answer.
Of course, Your Honour. Your Honour, without wishing to interrupt my learned friend's line of questioning, Mr. O'Brien is coming to give evidence today. It may be that some of these questions are best directed towards him.
Well, we'll let counsel take his course.
Of course, Your Honour. Understood. Your Honour, one final thing, if I may. Could I ask for a non-publication order in respect of that? I would assume that it is a very confidential document.
Well, you'd have to persuade me of that, Mr. Tocklin. The Royal Commission, as far as possible, operates in public.
Understood, Your Honour.
The organization loves dishing out condemnation, but they do not follow their own principles. True religion in no way practices secretiveness. By the way, the Australian Royal Commission did end up uploading a heavily redacted branch organization manual as an exhibit. Let's believe that the lawyer is being completely truthful when he says he's heard the phrase theocratic warfare but doesn't know what it means, or that a country's branch lawyer has never heard of the branch organization guidelines. It could be that the organization is very compartmentalized. It reminds me how in military or intelligence agencies, access to information is restricted to certain levels on a need-to-know basis. The fewer people that know, the less risk there is of information falling into enemy hands. After all, as governing body member Splane said,
our faith is under attack, and we have to fight. Brothers, this is war.
And they view the whole world as the enemy that will soon turn against them. The October 1st, 1954 Watchtower again uses that similar definition of a lie Gerrit Lösch used earlier. A lie is a false statement made by one to another who is entitled to hear and know the truth, and which false statement tends toward injury to the other. The February 1st, 1956 Watchtower excuses lying this way: since the unchristian wolves declare war upon the sheep and choose to make themselves fighters actually against God, it is proper for the inoffensive sheep to use war strategy toward the wolves in the interests of God's work. No one against whom the strategy is used is unrighteously hurt because of it, whereas the sheep, or those interests that deserve to be protected, are safeguarded. God does not oblige us to show the stupidity of sheep and play into the hands of our fighting enemy. We should meet the seed of the serpent, the offspring of vipers, with the cautiousness of serpents. Foreseeing danger, we should cover ourselves against the wolves that prey upon Jehovah's flock. Oppressive wolves will enter in among you, and will not treat the flock with tenderness. Therefore keep awake, says Paul. A prudent man seeth the evil and hideth himself. It is proper to cover over our arrangements for the work that God commands us to do. If the wolfish foes draw wrong conclusions from our maneuvers to outwit them, no harm has been done to them by the harmless sheep, innocent in their motives as doves. The action is not out of a liar's hatred. He that hideth hatred is of lying lips, and he that uttereth a slander is a fool. A lying tongue hateth those whom it hath wounded. The same article continues, to this day, the history of Jehovah's Witnesses is ever new with like cases of their outwitting the wolves by exercising due caution in the face of danger, while they are engaged in a good, loving work according to God's will and command. Such outwitting of oppressors of the sheep is not a failure to render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. It is a courageous, sensible way of rendering first unto God the things that are God's. Serpent-like caution is to be exercised only while the sheep are among wolves or in contact with them. Jesus did not advise us among the congregation of Jehovah's people, for all of these are sheep, so it is as much a rule for spiritual Israel of today as it was for natural Israel of old. You people must not steal, and you must not deceive, and you must not lie anyone to his associate. The May 1st, 1957 Watchtower has the article entitled, Use Theocratic War Strategy. It begins, a witness of Jehovah was going from house to house in eastern Germany when she met a violent opposer. Knowing at once what to expect, she changed her red blouse for a green one in the very next hallway. No sooner had she appeared on the street than a communist officer asked her if she had seen a woman with a red blouse. No, she replied, and went on her way. Did she tell a lie? No, she did not. She was not a liar. Rather, she was using theocratic war strategy, hiding the truth by action and word for the sake of the ministry. As an example, using the same principle from the paragraph, can you see the organization trying to circumvent authorities by changing names of documents, manuals, or whatever was specifically requested, so they can say, using their own twisted rationalization, those items do not exist? That's why it's so important for insiders with morals and a conscience to be whistleblowers. The next paragraph again speaks of Rahab, Abraham, Isaac, and David hiding the truth without so much as a word of censure in the Bible. The footnote refers us to the February 1st, 1956 magazine, which we've already looked at. The article continues, perhaps some will wonder as to where the line is to be drawn between use of theocratic war strategy and hiding the truth and the telling of lies. First of all, let it be noted that whenever one takes an oath to tell the truth, he is obligated to do so. By dedicating himself to do God's will, each Christian has taken a vow or made an oath to do God's will and to be faithful to Him. To this oath, he certainly must be true. Likewise, when a Christian is placed on a witness stand, he is obligated to speak the truth if he speaks at all. At times, he may prefer to refuse to speak and suffer the consequences rather than betray his brothers or the interests of God's work. And, of course, there is no occasion for use of war strategy when dealing with our Christian brothers. In dealing with them, we tell the truth, or tactfully remind them that what they seek to know does not concern them. Lies are untruths, told for selfish reasons and which work injury to others, Satan told a lie to Eve that worked great harm to her and all the human race. Ananias and Sapphira told lies for selfish reasons, but hiding the truth, which he is not entitled to know, from an enemy does not harm him, especially when he would use such information to harm others who are innocent. So in time of spiritual warfare, it is proper to misdirect the enemy by hiding the truth. It is done unselfishly. It does not harm anyone. On the contrary, it does much good. Today, God's servants are engaged in a warfare, a spiritual theocratic warfare, a warfare ordered by God against wicked spirit forces and against false teachings. God's servants are sent forth as sheep among wolves, and therefore need to exercise the extreme caution of serpents, so as to protect properly the interests of God's kingdom committed to them. At all times they must be very careful not to divulge any information to the enemy that he could use to hamper the preaching work. Now that we've looked at what theocratic war strategy is, let's continue with Gerrit Lösch's talk about lies and see if you can point out where he is carefully picking his words so they can be interpreted differently by Jehovah's Witnesses and the secular world.
Lying involves saying something incorrect to a person who is entitled to know the truth about a matter. But there is also something that is called a half-truth. The Bible tells Christians to be honest with each other.
The Bible tells Christians to be honest with each other. Let's put that through the JW translator. Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are the only true Christians. The Bible tells Jehovah's Witnesses to be honest with other Jehovah's Witnesses.
Now that you have put away deceit, speak truth, wrote the Apostle Paul at Ephesians 4:25. Lies and half-truths undermine trust. A German proverb says, "Who lies once is not believed even if he says the truth." So we need to speak openly and honestly with each other, not withholding bits of information that could change the perception in the listener or mislead him.
Speak openly and honestly with each other, again, referring to other Jehovah's Witnesses. If you weren't a part of the organization, it might be difficult to spot the JW speak. I've referenced the book 1984 by George Orwell in other videos, but again, this practice of redefining words like what a lie is, or even what a generation is, and the nuances of words within the organization reminds me of Newspeak.
Appendix. The Principles of Newspeak. Newspeak was the official language of Oceania and had been devised to meet the ideological needs of INGSOC. Its vocabulary was so constructed as to give exact and often very subtle expression to every meaning that a party member could properly wish to express, while excluding all other meanings and also the possibility of arriving at them by indirect methods. This was done partly by the invention of new words, but chiefly by eliminating undesirable words and by stripping such words as remained of unorthodox meanings, and so far as possible of all secondary meanings whatever.
This is the declaration of governing body member Gerrit Lösch provided to the Superior Court of the State of California in the case of Jose Lopez versus the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York. Jose Lopez sued the Jehovah's Witness organization, alleging his Bible instructor sexually abused him in 1986 when he was a child.
I am a member of the ecclesiastical governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, having been appointed to serve in that capacity on July 1st, 1994. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is the highest ecclesiastical authority for the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it exercises spiritual oversight for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. I am not, and never have been, a corporate officer, director, managing agent, member, or employee of Watchtower. I do not direct, and have never directed, the day-to-day operations of Watchtower. I do not answer to Watchtower. I do not have, and never have had, any authority as an individual to make or determine corporate policy for Watchtower or any department of Watchtower. Watchtower does not have, and never has had, any authority over me. I have no personal knowledge of any facts or circumstances concerning the subject matter of this case because, among other things, I do not supervise or work for, and I have never supervised or worked for, the Watchtower Legal Department or the U.S. Service Department.
His statement is likely legally correct. The organization has so many different legal entities, it's hard to keep track of. There's Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, Inc. Watchtower is one word, but there's also the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania. Notice Watchtower is two separate words. Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Inc., Religious Order of Jehovah's Witnesses, New York, Kingdom Support Services, Inc., New York, International Bible Students Association, and on across the world. But was his statement misleading? Remember his own words.
So we need to speak openly and honestly with each other, not withholding bits of information that could change the perception in the listener or mislead him.
Let's imagine a scenario where elders met with you to counsel you for some wrongdoing. What would happen if you answered, "Watchtower does not have and never has had any authority over me. I do not answer to Watchtower"? How do you think that would go over with the elders? Would that get you out of a judicial committee? The second baptism question for Jehovah's Witnesses asks, do you understand that your baptism identifies you as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in association with Jehovah's organization? Maybe they should specify what legal corporation of the organization we are technically getting baptized under. This revised baptismal question also removes any reference to the Holy Spirit, even though Jesus told his disciples to baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Sure, Lösch may not determine corporate policy, but the governing body does direct theocratic policy. And wouldn't the general guidelines of how to respond to cases of CSA fall under that? Remember that lawyer earlier that tried to weasel out of saying that wasn't the case at the Australian Royal Commission?
Yes, but Mr. Toole, you seem to be trying to avoid what I understand to be quite well accepted, which is that it's the governing body that determines that direction.
That's what I understand, yes.
Yes.
So was the specific wording the technicality Gerrit Lösch used to try to, quote-unquote, outwit the wolves? In part 2 of this Theocratic Warfare series, we will look at other real-life examples of Jehovah's Witnesses involved in legal proceedings and see how theocratic warfare is practiced. Theocratic warfare doesn't necessarily involve outright lying. It could be done by being technically or legally truthful, but misleading, by withholding information, or, in their own words, by outwitting the wolves. On a lighter note, a few weekends ago we had a contest in this channel's community. Viewers were asked, imagining if Anthony Morris wrote a tell-all book about the governing body and Jehovah's Witnesses, a la Raymond Franz, what would the book be called? Wrong answers only. Congratulations to the winner who had the most votes, Jonathan LaForge, with his entry, Vanished Like Smoke, the story of a former cult leader. The next 3 runner-ups were No Remorse, the Anthony Morris story, by Sword of Gideon, McAllen and Me, Drinking My Way Out of the Cult, by Witness for Jesus, and then there were 143,999 by Eric R. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to Twitter user TechIsMyThing for buying me coffee. And thank you all for watching. See you in the next video.